Hello, welcome back to the Board Games 4K YouTube channel, and this is a channel where we give you playthroughs, reviews, unboxings, all that sort of stuff, and we generally talk a load of bollocks about tabletop gaming in general. And in this video we're going to be talking about a very light and sort of polarising war game called 1812, the invasion of Canada. And this is a game where you see the Americans try and invade Canada and get a nice righteous slap by the British and the Canadians. And in this video we'll be giving you a quick overview of the rules. We'll be telling you what we do like, what we don't like, and then we'll be coming back and we'll be telling you whether or not 1812, the invasion of Canada, is still worth playing today, 7 years after its initial release. So if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to our channel. Leave a comment in that box down there below, and we'll see you after this.
Board Games 4K.
So 1812, the invasion of Canada. How do you play this game? So the idea of this game is to manoeuvre your troops and take over enemy forts or cities in their home area. And the way you do this, you'll be following a set amount of phases. So there's 5 factions in this game. You've got the American regulars, you've got the American militia, you've got the British regulars, you've got the Canadian militia, and then you've got the Native Americans. And ideally you want 5 players, so 1 player takes each faction, but you can play it with a lesser player count, and it works quite well. So everybody's got a set number of cubes. Every faction's got a distinct and unique deck of cards, and everybody's got a unique set of custom dice assigned to their faction. And the first thing you're going to be doing is, after you've set up the initial troop placements on the board, you're going to be enlisting new troops. And you'll notice you've got a certain number of muster points on the board, so you'll be looking at the numbers next to the muster points, and you'll be putting that number of cubes into that space. And you'll also be putting cubes that fled from combat in previous round from the flee army space into a muster point of your choice. So your draw deck is made up of a certain number of type of cards. You've got movement cards both on land and water movement, and you've got event cards as well. And there's also a special movement card called a truce card, but we'll get into how that works in a little bit. So you'll make sure that you've got 3 cards in your hand. You'll always have 3 cards in your hand at one time, and you must play a movement card during your turn. That's a mandatory action, but you can also play up to 2 special event cards if you wanted. So what you'll do, you'll look at the movement card and you'll see the amount of troops that you can move, and then the amount of areas that you can move as well. And there's a couple of little anomalies with say fishing boats and canoes, but they've all got their own little rules, but it's very, very basic. It just basically tells you that you can move a certain number of troops across a certain number of regions, but there's specifications as to what type of troop you can move, right? So what you'll do, you'll grab the army that's in a specific region that you've chosen, and an army is any number of cubes in that region. So there's a little bit of confusion with this game sometimes, where people think that the cards are specifying the amount of cubes that you move, when it's not. It's actually specifying the amount of different armies that you can move across the board. So you can split the cubes before you move them, but afterwards you can't split them, you can't pick any up, and you can't drop any off. So you'll pick up all the cubes and then you'll move them up to the number of spaces that are specified on the movement card. If any of your troops enter a space with any opposing troops, that will instigate a battle. So the way that battles work is that each faction's got a specific maximum number of dice that they can roll on their turn, and that reflects the maximum amount of troops that can enter into a battle. So for instance, like the American regulars, they can only use 2 dice, whereas the Native Americans can use 3. And you'll notice that each die has got a different number of symbols on it. So you've got the attack symbol, you've got the flee symbol, and a blank side means that you can make a command decision. Whoever's home territory the battle's taking place in, they'll roll their dice first, and they'll look at the amount of hits they got, and they'll remove those cubes of their opponent's cubes from the board. Flee symbols mean that you have to take a specific number of cubes off the board that equate to that number of flee symbols that you roll, and you put them in the flee army's part of the board ready to come back in the next round. And a command decision means that you can move any number of your troops from where the battle's taken place into a friendly adjacent region. But the Native Americans, they got a bit of they can do things a little bit differently. They can move their cubes into an enemy territory as long as it's empty. So you'll keep doing this until there's only one side surviving. And you've got to remember that whoever's turn it is can take control of any armies that are in allegiance with their own army. So it pays you to sort of go into sort of talks with your own side, right? Once you've resolved all your battles, then you'll draw up to 3 cards. And I remember we said about you could play up to 2 event cards. With these event cards, they give you like a sort of a special action in addition to your movement action. And you might have a card that allows you to move an extra couple of troops to any area adjacent to a certain lake. You may have an event card that allows you to move all the armies that are being moved that term, 1 extra area. Or you may have a card that allows you to add extra units to a specific location. So these event cards sort of tend to be quite useful, but they do also clog up your hand, especially if you've got a truce card in your hand. And that's one of the ways the game can end, is all players of one side have played their truce cards, or you get to round 8 and the game will end. So if you've got a truce card in your hand and 2 special cards, then that may pose a problem because you will have to play that truce card. And truce cards are just sort of a very powerful movement card at the end of the day. And if you ever have 3 special cards in your hand, then you have to reshuffle them into the deck and draw another 3 cards until you have at least 1 movement card, because remember, movement is mandatory. So that's basically how you play. Once everyone on one side's played their truce cards, or everybody's played the truce cards, or you get to round 8, the game is over, and whoever controls the most forts or cities is the winner. And remember, you can tie this game. So what do we like about 1812, the invasion of Canada? So the first thing we like is the fact that this has just got a 5-page rulebook, and we still managed to screw it up on our playthrough. If you want to see that, you can go back and have a look at it. We forgot, there was a little bit weird in the rulebook where it tells you to add additional troops and it tells you to go to a certain page, but there's a tiny little box that tells you for the full game what to add, and then there's a big old massive thing for like a specific scenario, and we looked at the specific scenario and we didn't end up adding extra cubes. But anyway, there's that. But it's a very simple rule set. It's just a case of moving your troops, chucking a few dice and deciding which cards to play, and that's basically it. And it lasts for about an hour to an hour and a half at the tops, right? But the game can end between round 3 and round 8. So yeah, very, very simple, very, very clean and efficient set of rules. So the second thing that we really like about this one is the dice rolling. The combat in this is very, very exciting, because you just don't know what you're going to get, and all the factions have got different things. Like the British regulars, they can't flee, right? But the American regulars only roll 2 dice, and the Native Americans, they have lots of command decisions, so you don't know which way they're going to go. And it does seem to me, I mean, this has been criticised on certain websites, forums, but it seems to us that the game is sort of, the dice at least are very well balanced, and you give and take on certain things. So like we said, the British regulars, they are battle hardened, well trained, well drilled, they won't retreat. But the Americans, they're just that little bit less disciplined, and then you've got the militias, which are very hardly disciplined at all. So it sort of balances itself up quite well. So the next thing we really enjoy about this one is the event cards, the special cards. They really do change the game up, and where there's only a few of them, but they're very, very powerful. If you can get a couple of them into your hand and play them at the right time, they can be a game changer, and the game does tend to swing quite rapidly. When we played it, me and my mum, we were the American side, and we thought, yeah, we're 4-1 up, we're going to have it, it's easy, we're going to win it. And a couple of turns later, we were like sort of basically taken apart by the British, because they just don't want to retreat. And yeah, it's the element of the event cards really helped us out in trying to fight back, and it was quite close in the end. So yeah, there's a really good thing, event cards. So another thing we really enjoy about this game is the way the map is laid out. There's a lot of choke points. Like you've got the 2 objectives on that 6 Nations bit, right? And that sort of that attempts to funnel troops into this sort of choke point. But then you've also got, you can go around the back up by God, I don't even know where it is, Lake Erie, around the back of Lake Erie. So you've got that, and then you've got the Montreal part of the map, where the British are very, very strong. So you've got all these different choke points. The game does try and sort of funnel funnel players into these certain regions, and if you take your eye off of those points, then somebody can come and steal in and go straight across Lake Ontario, straight across Lake Erie, and take the forts that are along the border. So we really like that there's lots to look at, lots to think about, lots of different areas of contention on the map, and it's fantastic. So what don't we like about 1812, the invasion of Canada? So the main thing, the first thing that frustrates us about this game is the fact that the game can end abruptly, and it can end very, very early. So from round 3 onwards, you've got this sort of weird rule, whereas if everybody on one side has played their truce cards, the game will end. So you could have, for instance, a situation where, especially on the American side, if the American regulars and the American militia have both got 2 event cards in their hand and 1 truce card each, they've got to play their truce cards, and the game could end in round 4, right? And nobody really knew that was coming. So if you're sort of being pushed back to the point in round 3 where you can't do anything, then that round, the game's over, and that round is dead. So there's this weird sort of thing where, we thought it would have been better if all the truce cards would have been played and not just maybe 2 out of 5. So yeah, it's a massive con. It really is, because it means that you're laying all these plans in your mind. You're conferring with your partner, thinking you've got this grand plan for this big, massive assault, and then it's done. It's gone. It's finished. So yeah. So the second thing, and this isn't based on our playthrough. We've had this game since about 2012, so this isn't based on our playthroughs. But I've read criticism that the game heavily favours the British, Canadian, Native American side, and we've never experienced that. It's been the games we've played; they've been sort of equal. But yeah, there is criticism of that sort of anomaly in there, and there's some balancing mechanisms and that. But I mean, you have to play the game yourself to sort of experience that. But we don't really know. But I'm just saying that is one of the negatives that has been perceived to exist in this game. You've also got to remember that sort of criticism is sort of kind of valid in a sense. If it is unbalanced in favour of the British, then that sort of is a reflection of reality, because the British did give the Americans a good spanking here. The Americans thought, in reality, they thought they could just roll in to Canada and just take a few acres of snow, so to speak, and then they got a big old slap, didn't they? So yeah, so any criticism does reflect reality in this case, doesn't it? So at the end of the day, I suppose you could just sort of relegate this down to the fact that it is just a cube pushing, dice chucking fest. I mean, theme aside, yeah, even though the theme is quite good, you could just say that all you're doing is you're drawing a card that tells you which cubes to push, and then you're chucking a few dice, and that's it. But like we said, one of the good things about this game is its simplicity, but then that's offset by the fact that it could be quite random, and it could be very, very over very quickly. So to summarise, is 1812, the invasion of Canada, is it worth playing? Is it worth playing in 2019 and beyond? So we're going to say this is a hugely enjoyable dice chucking, random loony fest, right? Because that's all it is. It's just some of the excitement you can get out of this. We watch our playthrough. We were cheering, we were throwing our arms up in the air, we were screaming and that when things went our way, and when things didn't go our way, we were like, oh my God, no! But there's always a route. There always seems to be a route back into the game, because this game just swings like a pendulum. One minute you think you're on course for a quick victory, the next thing you're scrambling around trying to wonder where your next troops are going to come from and how many movement points you've got to spend to move them into the battle. This is an exciting sort of tactical war game that doesn't get bogged down in those little itty bitty rules. There's a couple of little bitty rules, but it doesn't get bogged down in those mind numbing rule referencing things. There's no rule reference. You don't need to know anything. You just hold your nose, dive in and swim. So anyway, a couple of issues we got with this game is the fact that it may be unbalanced in favour of the British, which is a good thing, obviously, and also that the game has this weird sort of game ending element with the truce cards, which we find a bit strange. But that aside, we're going to give this game 4 out of 5. It's sort of aged in a sense. It looks very, very bland. Like the colour scheme's pretty bad. But insofar as a quick war game that gives you like a nice little sort of chance to reevaluate history, then yeah, we really enjoy this one, and we're not going to get rid of it. We're going to keep it. Well, we kept it for 7 years, haven't we? So we're going to keep playing it, and we're going to keep exploring the nuances of this game to see if a game is unbalanced or not. But we don't think it is. So yeah, that's 1812, the invasion of Canada. Like we said, if you're new here, then please consider subscribing to our channel. Leave a comment about this or anything else you want to talk about in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time.
I'm back again.
I see good.